face in the microphone.
Hello, help me.
Hello and welcome back. Christine E. Schultz here, your favorite Elvish author, and the lovely, the fab, Isaac, my boyfriend. And this is another chapter reaction where we read books to you to help you discover new things that you might want to read. Usually we read stuff that we've never read before to help us discover something new that we might want to read as well. However, what we've been doing is reading from my Legend of Zelda fan fiction called Demon Queen. And so today we're going to be on chapter 4, I do believe. So this is a bit of a Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time crossover. Mostly a Ghirahim Ocarina of Time crossover. Ghirahim has found himself in the timeline where you have Koume and Kotake, only much younger, and he's been sent here to, make the way ready for demise to return again. However, Ghirahim has decided to take matters into his own hands and decided that he wants to be the one to take over this land this time. But in order to do that, he has to summon some armies, and in order to do that, he needs to figure out a way to get into a portal to summon these armies, and in order to do that, right now he's trying to win over Koume and Kotake. Kotake, he's already
About to say.
won over.
He already got her.
With many ravishings, as this one likes to point out.
So many.
Warning, this is a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a graphic romance book, but there are definitely intimate scenes in here. But now he has to win over Koume. She's not so sure about this demon lord. So that's where we're at. Let's jump into chapter 4. Well, you know what we forgot?
You forgot to put your ears on.
Strap on your elf ears. That's the only way you can be ready to listen to chapter 4. Here we go.
And 5 and 6.
One thing at a time. Chapter 4. Shadows and firelight surrounded Ghirahim as he, Koume, and Kotake joined within the depths of the witch's private chambers. Ghirahim had spent the morning in the sun, soaking up its heat and light, exploring the grounds, wooing many a Gerudo maid, and practicing his hand at their favorite sports. He had especially excelled in horseback archery. What a thrill to command the regal horse granted him, a great black-muscled beast called Prince, a most appropriate name for someone who would soon enough become the new king of Hyrule. No doubt the horse would grant Ghirahim many more princes, even as his own princes would one day dominate the land with him. Lord Ghirahim. Koume's fingers rapped on the round stone table they stood about. Maps and various other parchments were strewn across. Shelves filled with books, potions, powders, and other odds and ends familiar to a sorceress's chamber surrounded them. My sister has told me you're quite insistent on your plans to usurp the Hylian throne. I will admit some skepticism on such an idea, but between yours and her persistence, I am willing, at the least, to hear your explanation. She studied him closely. Just like Sakura, if she possessed any desire toward him, he could not detect it. Though she chose to mask any true feelings with fierceness, as opposed to the servant girl's tranquility. My Lady Koume, Ghirahim said with a long, sweeping bow. First of all, may I say how radiant I find you this afternoon, and how delighted I am to make your acquaintance once more. Koume did not look impressed. I can hardly return the same sentiments, seeing as how you nearly slaughtered me yesterday. Sister, Kotake gasped, that was all part of your trial, if you recall. And if you recall, sister, it was your idea to encourage him to join our ranks at all, much as it is your idea now to encourage him in this new scheme. This scheme to which you refer will be for the benefit of us all, Ghirahim said. Not only can I summon great masses of beasts and undead to fight for me, but I can teach you and Kotake to do the same, if you like. My sister and I will continue our training in private, as we prefer. Koume shot a sharp glare at Kotake, who had started to protest. Even still, the matter of a portal remains. Portals are needed to open travel between worlds. There is a place by our temple, rumored to be an old portal. It now lies dormant, and we've no knowledge on how to open it. In all my years of studying, I yet cannot tell you. And so, all the knowledge in the world of how to summon an army will do us no good if the army does not have a place wherewith to be summoned. I understand, Ghirahim said, but we have a place, as you say, and that is a start. Perhaps I might see the supposed portal with my own eyes. Perhaps I might figure out a way. If you wish, Koume said. It's about an hour's journey northeast from here, across the desert. Then we had best be off so as to not waste this glorious day. If all goes well, I may have our army, and we may have taken the royal city by sundown." He winked at Kotake, who grinned in return. Koume smiled and nodded curtly. Bursting back into sunlight once more, Ghirahim could feel a new energy dancing through his body with an erratic excitement. Soon, the three of them would stand at the cusp of the means to his victory. If anyone could resurrect a portal to the underworld, surely he could. He would have his army and his throne by nightfall. If he had possessed a heart, it would have raced with ecstasy until it leapt right out of his chest. They made their way to the gates towering over the Gerudo fortress, acting as a barricade between it and the desert beyond. Many Gerudo glanced up curiously, nodding or bowing as their leaders in newfound curiosity passed by. Especially, their eyes fell upon the latter, a fact Ghirahim duly noted. He had already decided that his boredom with Kotake would come swiftly to pass, but no matter. It seemed he had a host of willing subjects, enough to keep his need for amusement renewed for some time. Koume stopped them and shouted some command in a strange tongue to the Gerudo who stood atop one of the towers flanking the gate. Moments later, the gate began to rise. Its loud creaking declared its age and the magnitude of the mission they prepared to embark on. Koume shouted something else to the guard and started forward, waving Kotake and Ghirahim after her. Kotake gave Ghirahim an expectant yet nervous glance. With a bow, he motioned for her to go ahead. A blush crept subtly into her tanned cheeks as she obeyed. Ghirahim followed behind, and the moment his feet crossed beyond the gate's shadow, it began to close behind them. They had traversed the sandy plain only a few yards when the first obstacle rose into view, a great sea of ever-shifting sands. A bird's carcass was carried across on the surface until, suddenly, the sand sucked it under, devouring it like the great waves of an ocean storm might devour a sinking ship. "The Spirit Temple," Koume said, "is a sacred place. It guards ancient secrets, holds strong magic, and is a place of spiritual worship and training. We keep it well guarded. Placed in the care of the wrong hands, its ancient magic could be easily abused. Moreover, in the past it served as a hiding place for traitors, and the most vicious rebellion arose within our fortress. Such a thing we will not allow ever again. Kotake, will you do the honors of clearing the first trial?" Kotake nodded at her sister, eyes bright with excitement. Raising her hands toward the great sea of sand, she concentrated until icy blasts of air gusted from her palms. Ghirahim stepped closer, relishing their chill in contrast to the sun's merciless heat. The icy wind soon solidified into an icy bridge that arched over the surface of the sand sea. Kotake lowered her hands, and Koume said, "Well done, sister." They started forward. For a while, their trek proved otherwise eventless, but the clear skies gave the sun a clear path to scorch them so that the journey seemed endlessly long. Koume appeared unaffected by the heat, and a subtle blue tint shimmering from Kotake's skin suggested that she had placed some shield around herself. Ghirahim pressed on with no complaint, wishing to display no hint of weakness. He was a master at wielding fire, but the sun had always held a special sway over him that was harder to guard against than other flames. After some time, a sandstorm arose, blinding their path. Ghirahim was grateful for its cover from the sun, but then Koume stopped and spread her arms wide, and he realized the storm must be another barrier between them and the temple. Koume focused so fiercely on the raging sandstorm that Ghirahim half expected the grains of sand to burst into tiny flames and disintegrate, leaving a desert of ash in their wake. Instead, the wind calmed, gradually, until the sands lay completely still. The sun reflected upon their ripples as though a golden lake spanned before them. "Come on, then," Koume said. "The only way to make it is to push through to the other side." The sun's heat magnified in the absence of the wind, and they traversed the ocean of sand for what seemed like hours more. Ghirahim began to resent Koume for saying the trek was but an hour long. Perhaps it was some trick of hers. Perhaps she meant to lose him in the desert, in hopes of his being consumed by the sun until he went mad or burst into flames. With each sandy hill they climbed, he hoped to see some glimpse of a wall, or towers, or whatever comprised the temple looming into view, but every time his eyes were grazed only with more images of sand. Then, after what seemed another age, as they stepped over what seemed to their million sandy ridge, the temple was suddenly there, built within the surface of a massive chunk of rock. A few steps more, and a great weight seemed to lift from their shoulders, even as another cloaked them. The sun no longer beat so intensely, but magic hung so thickly that Ghirahim could have reached out and almost grasped it in his hands. They had crossed some final barrier, and finally, the temple was before them. They paused beneath a ring of palm trees and took refreshment in the small oasis. After drinking their fill from the spring, Koume led them toward the mountain of stone. "Behold," she declared, "the great spirit temple, where our sisters before us, and their sisters before them worshipped, trained, and served as protectors of our people. The magical line has almost died out, as we are forced to mate with mortals. My sister and I are all who remain. But the Gerudo were once the most noble race skilled in many a magical art. The temple may look dull from the outside, but within is gilded with fine gold and silks. But come, our business does not lie within the temple, not today. Our business lies over here." As they passed beneath the shadow of the cliffs, Kotake flung an envious glance at the temple. Ghirahim also watched with some curiosity. Magic flowed strongly from it. Ancient magic, very deep. A stronger magic pulse drew his attention from the temple to the spot Koume led them toward. A large flat octagon made of gray stone. The image etched upon it was much weathered by wind and sand, and yet its faint traces could be made out. The Triforce crest, symbolizing the ancient power of the gods. As they drew closer, its magic pulsed even more strongly, as though the stone had an actual heartbeat. Its magic was very much alive, and very much tangible, and yet hidden just beyond Ghirahim's grasp. But were he to grasp it, the power of the gods himself, why, he could make himself a god. He could be the first demon to rise above and become a commander of the heavens. He could be Ghirahim, god of demons. "This is the portal," he said. "This is our threshold to victory, from whence I will build my great army." "Your great army," Koume said, saying him sharply. "To use for the benefit of us all, of course." Ghirahim took a deep breath, attempting to stave the exhilaration wanting to take full control of him. "Well, at any rate, you can see for yourself that the gate between worlds is closed tight." "Yes, but just begging to be opened." Ghirahim circled the portal, glancing at the runes etched all along its edges. "These runes, what do they say?" He glanced up at Koume. Koume shrugged. "I don't know. I assume, of course, that there's some kind of code, that they tell the way to open the portal, but I can't read them. My sister can't read them. Reading runes is an ancient art lost to my people along with many other magics, destined, or doomed, some may put it, to remain forever lost in secret and memory." Ghirahim narrowed his gaze at her. "So, you brought us all this way, only to tell us that there is no way in." "Of course there is a way," Koume said, "even if no one knows it. I did warn you before we made the trek. You wanted to see the portal. This I promised, and thus I have kept my word." Ghirahim's gaze drifted once more to the portal. He began chanting spells. Summoning spells, luring charms, calling spells, every type of spell that might remotely form some connection with the portal. The portal answered to none of his attempts, ignoring him as though it didn't so much as sense his presence. "Surely there must be a way to decipher the runes," he said. "As I said, of course there must be, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how to go about finding that way." Ghirahim glared up at the smug expression on her face. Kotake looked equally irritated with her sister. "Shall we head back?" Koume glanced up at the sun. "The day grows long, and I have duties to attend back at the fortress." Kotake placed a hand on Ghirahim's arm. "We can perhaps practice our archery together. You can show me a trick or two with your fire darts." "My sister also has duties to attend, if she would remember from time to time." Kotake pouted. "There is more to life than duties." "Not for you. If you would remember your position for once, I might give you more responsibility. As it is, you can't handle those tasks I do appoint you to. Come on then, we won't get anything done by standing about arguing." The trek back across the desert felt even more grueling than the first, so that by the time they had re-entered the fortress, Ghirahim's frustrations had mounted tenfold. Kotake bid him a good afternoon, while Koume disappeared into the fortress without a word. Ghirahim spent the remainder of the day venting his frustrations at the archery grounds, till his temper got the best of him and he burned half the targets to cinders. He turned his attention then to the training grounds, a building that housed monsters to duel and puzzles to solve. The battles and puzzles alike were petty to one of his intelligence and skill, but they amused him enough to keep him distracted until the sun began to set. The Gerudo set bonfires ablaze. Some played music, while others began to dance around the fires. Ghirahim had not the desire for such festivities that evening. Time was of the essence. Demise could awaken to his schemes at any moment. The entire day had been wasted, leaving Ghirahim no closer to his goal of summoning his army than he had been before. As he passed the bonfires, the mere energy radiating from his body sent them flaring high and dancing with blue and purple hues. The Gerudo cried out and then laughed in delight. Ghirahim hastened his pace. He did not need their happiness to remind him of his own misery. At last he reached the solitude of his chambers, but even they could not comfort. Rather, the walls confined. No hint of stars or the sun or the outside world. Just him, trapped within these walls, waiting for his master to ascend and drag him down to the depths of the underworld and imprison him there once more for his defiance. He began to pace, hoping that the acknowledgement of space and movement would remind him that he was, indeed, yet free. But he couldn't feel his freedom. It felt as close, and yet as hidden from him as had the gates of the portal. Just within his grasp, moments away from his fingertips, yet so far at the same time. "My lord?" Ghirahim paused and looked up. Sakura had just entered the room and stood watching him. Beyond her serene gaze, he thought he caught a glimpse of something like curiosity or concern. "My lord, you seem anxious this evening. May I get you anything to ease your discomfort?" "Can you grant to me the ancient magic of the gods?" Sakura stood silent. "Then no," Ghirahim said. "No, there is nothing." "If I may," she said, "I am here to serve you, and you alone, my lord. If there is anything you would wish to confide in me, perhaps I cannot help except to let you unburden your troubled spirit. But if that would provide any consolation to my master, then I would gladly listen." Ghirahim watched her carefully. Again, her words reflected sincerity. Difficult as she was to decipher, he sensed no lie in her, no falseness. "I have ever possessed a gift for detecting a liar," Ghirahim said. "But you, for some reason, I feel as though I can trust you. You vow not to speak a word of anything, not anything I share with you to a single soul, not even the sisters whom you serve, on pain of death." "As I said, my lord, I serve you. The sisters may have appointed me, but I am loyal to your service." "And wisely so. If any harm were to befall you, I, above all others, would be able to defend you." Sakura bowed her head and waited humbly for further command. "The sisters showed me something today." The moment he began to speak, he felt the words flowing from him like poison drained from a wound. He wondered for a moment if she truly did cast some spell on him, but he didn't care. If she did, strangely, he yet trusted her, which made her either the pure spirit he suspected, or else a very cunning witch indeed. "They showed me a portal that would allow me to open the path to the underworld and summon a great army. From there, I could use my army to take the Hylian throne and become lord of my own realm. I could, perhaps, even harness the powers of the gods so that my master could never seek to enslave me ever again. The portal was right at my fingertips, as was my every plan and ambition, but the way is closed. The way is closed, and there is no one to decipher the runes that would unlock its secrets." "The sisters did not know how to open it?" Ghirahim studied her. "You are very curious for a servant." Sakura bowed her head once more. "If I have overstepped my bounds, I do humbly beg your pardon. I did say my part was to listen, not to grant opinions or counsel." "No," Ghirahim said, walking toward her. She glanced up and met his gaze. "No, your counsel is welcome. As my confidant, I will value your opinions, though I do not have need to agree with them." "Yes, my lord. I only find it curious that the sisters have no knowledge of how to use such a powerful magic. It seems irresponsible, really. If they do not know how the portal operates, then they do not know how to protect it, which means anyone who discovers its secrets might open and use it against them. I know perhaps you admire the Gerudo for their ambition and would seek to use it for your own gain, but I would give this warning, that their same ambition could be as dangerous to you as yours could be to them." Ghirahim slipped behind her and wrapped his arms around her. Lightly touching her stomach, he rested his head close to her delicate neck and inhaled deeply, savoring her sweet, succulent scent. "What are you doing, my lord?" she asked quietly. "Your counsel pleases me, as does your concern for the safekeeping of my ambitions." His free hand crept up her arm, her shoulder, and rested just above her breast. "You are yet pure, without touch of men." She nodded. "Yes, my lord." Her voice was steady as ever, but its softness gave away what her heart, racing wildly against his palm, could not hide. "You have served me well," he said. "I trust you above all others here, and so I would have you trust me. I am a demon lord. I may take whatever I desire. But if you continue to serve me as you have, I will vow to let you keep your purity, unless you should decide otherwise." She trembled, then melted against him. His lips brushed her neck, and he swayed gently. As they danced, she reached one hand out to touch his cheek. How easily they always succumbed. Even a stalwart maiden like herself could not resist much longer. Within moments, he would have her, his most thrilling conquest in quite some time. In one quick movement, she whirled about and pushed away from him. She stood breathless, wide-eyed for some moments, surprised at her own boldness, or her passion, or perhaps both. She looked utterly overwhelmed, and Ghirahim advanced. His prey was cornered. He could easily persuade her still. She took a step back, and, veiling herself in her calm demeanor once more, said, "Thank you, my lord. I am most humbly grateful to you for your respect toward my purity." Ghirahim's gaze lingered on her a moment more. He wanted to lunch and resume his hunt, but he restrained himself. With a bow, he said, "You are most welcome, my lady. You have kept your word to me, and so I shall keep mine. But to do so, I must dismiss you from my service for the evening." A gentle blush touched her cheeks. "Yes, my lord," she said, and with a curtsy, stole quietly from the room. With a snarl, Ghirahim collapsed back on his bed. He was now far more awake than he had been, and twice as frustrated. Her loyalty created in her a beauty unlike that he had ever beheld in any mortal. or in any other being for that matter. He could not pinpoint exactly what allured him so strongly to her, and a part of him worried that she might be some trick of the sorceress's, even as another part of him cared far less than it should, if that happened to be the case. He would possess her fully before his time here was through. Such was a goal as necessary as unraveling the secret of bringing the ancient portal back to life. And that is the end to Chapter 4 of Demon Queen. Sir, your thoughts?
It's getting pretty interesting. I like seeing the spirit temple. That's fun.
Yeah, it's another ode there to Ocarina. What do we think of? Do we have any thoughts, new thoughts on Sakura, the servant girl?
She's the most interesting now to me.
How so?
She was able to stop his advances.
She was able to stop his advances. If you recall, Ghirahim being a demon lord, he's kind of like a vampire in that he just has that natural lure that makes it very easy to lure in his prey, even if that's his prey for sexy times, ravishing, as you like to say. But she's able to resist him, so that is curious. She also is just very calm and collected, and just really seems intent on helping him.
Yeah.
But she doesn't seem to have any own agenda, at least not that we can sense yet. So that's also quite curious. Any further thoughts on the sisters? I guess we didn't see them.
Not too much.
Too prominent in this chapter. But yeah. So what's going to happen next is Ghirahim going to be able to open this portal and get his army. Are the sisters not letting on, more? Do they actually know more than they're letting on about this portal and whatnot?
That was brought up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to find out what's going to happen next, you'll just have to wait for the chapter 5, next Saturday. Let me know down in the comments how you're enjoying this book so far. And on that note, happy reading, may you be inspired, and I'll see you in my next video.
What? Is Sakura the Demon Queen?
Can't tell you. No spoilers.
Shoot all the time.
Okay, you're fired already.
Goodbye, everybody.